Picard is the founder and director of the Effective Computing Research Group at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Media Lab and founding faculty chair of MIT's Mind and Hand and Heart Initiative. She has co-founded Affectiva Incorporated, providing emotion AI technology, and Empatica Incorporated, creating sensors and analytics to improve health. Empatica created the first AI-based smartwatch, Embrace, cleared by FDA in neurology for monitoring seizures. Rosland has authored or co-authored over 300 scientific articles and chapters spanning computer vision, pattern recognition, machine learning, human-computer interaction, wearable sensors, and effective computing. Can you share with us what effective computing is and what are some of the potential applications?
Mm-hmm. Affective computing with an A, although hopefully nicely confused with effective computing, is computing that relates to, arises from, or deliberately influences emotion or other affective phenomena. Other affective phenomena including interest, motivation, attention, and classic emotions including anger, joy, sadness, fear. There are hundreds of affective states.
Right.
The basic idea is to give technology some of the skills of emotional intelligence so that when it interacts with people, we won't get so annoyed by it. We will feel like human beings are being respected in the design of the technology. And ultimately, it's not about computers looking emotional or acting emotional. If anything, if that makes them less intelligent, that's very undesirable. It's really about crafting better experiences for people.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I don't think this is something that a lot of people have quote unquote like heard before about. So anyway, so why is this known as effective computing rather than emotional computing?
When I first started studying the brain and realizing how important emotions were for rational, intelligent behavior, I was an electrical engineer and I had worked really hard to be taken seriously as a woman in engineering and science. And at the time that I started learning about this, emotions were considered irrational, undesirable. Some people associate them with being kind of a stupid person or being more female than male. And so the last thing I wanted was to call it emotional. In fact, I was really hoping that the useful stuff I was finding would not have anything to do with emotions, because the last thing I wanted to do at the time was be associated at all with emotion. So I was actually trying to learn about other parts of the brain, and I kept bumping into these emotion systems that were shaping what mattered, where our attention went, how our decisions got made, how we actually chose to take an action versus to just keep logically considering an enormous space of possibilities. So as I learned how important emotion was, I realized I had to work on it, but I didn't want to be associated with it. So I thought the word affective sounded much more attractive. And when I named the field, I named it affective computing. Actually, it wasn't even a field at the time. I named an area of research that I was arguing we should be doing. And I wrote a book on it that I named Affective Computing. And I decided to call my group the Affective Computing Group, with a little bit of guts to put that word affective in there. Again, hopefully nicely confused with being effective.
Right, exactly. And so what inspired you and motivated you to start this type of unique work?
My inspiration was initially how to help make technology smarter and also how to make it less frustrating for people to interact with. For example, you might be interacting with your computer and somebody does something they think is smart, like have a little software agent say, it looks like you're writing a letter. This was actually a product from Microsoft at the time. And their little paperclip, dancing animated clip would come out, and it actually had really smart AI at figuring out what you were doing. Were you writing a letter? Were you looking for help? But what it didn't have was any knowledge of whether you were in a good mood or a bad mood. whether if it sees you, it should stop smiling and act subdued and submissive, or it should keep this happy dancy thing.
Right.
And, if a human being, okay,
Mhm.
were to come in my office when I'm having trouble and I'm frustrated and the computer's not behaving the way I want, and I've got a deadline and I'm under stress and pressure and I'm not happy and dancing, and it were to come in my office and start doing this happy dancy thing, see how upset I was and continue with its happy dancy thing, I would say, don't ever come back to my office again. Right. And in fact, people did that with this technology. Worse than that, they gave Bill Gates a standing ovation when he said he was finally getting rid of the technology.
Right.
They hated it. And that was a sign of intelligent computing that was emotionally unintelligent. It was being really annoying to people because it wasn't being smart about the affective signals people were sending it. And if it's going to look at us or surmise what we're doing or make, machine learning AI guesses about how to best help us, and it's not taking into account our feelings, then it's probably going to just annoy us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, that would make sense. So when you first started thinking about researching emotions, you did not want others to view you as an emotional female type of researcher. What made you feel this way, and what was the turning point that made you think that research involving emotions needed additional attention?
In engineering, even today, there really aren't as many women as there should be. We should have a
There's so
lot
many
more
men.
women in technology. It's a great field for women. I highly encourage women to, follow the math and the science. There is so much cool stuff. And we also need people who don't just do math and science, but who do design and human studies and lots of other things that make the technology of the future much more enjoyable. So we need women in the field. And at the time that I started, I would be like one girl in a class of 30 guys, or, the ratios were really pretty bad. It has gotten a lot better. MIT, half of their incoming freshmen are female now.
Right.
However, higher up where there's grad students and faculty, the numbers are still way too small. We need more. And it's a fabulous job. I really love my work. But I also want to be taken seriously. And when you're surrounded by lots of guys, mostly guys, and they have these stereotypes that, women are emotional and irrational, and it comes out of silly old, songs from My Fair Lady,
No, of course.
historical, humor entertainment pieces, right? Because everybody, men and women, in fact, the famous song about women being irrational has a man being highly irrational while singing the song, right? So, of course, it affects everybody. Emotion affects everybody, even people who think of themselves as unemotional and who are highly rational. In fact, what I learned in digging into the neuroscience was that if you took somebody whose emotions were damaged and you gave them rational problems to solve, they were actually impaired in their rationality. You actually are less rational if you don't have emotion.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Not well known, but it turns out you need kind of not too much emotion, not too little emotion, but the right amount of emotion and the right kinds of emotions. And you need to be smart about when to use them, when they can guide you into being creative, when they can guide you into helping control a difficult situation, when they can de-escalate a problem, when they can make somebody feel more cared for, instead of just, trying to solve their problem. Sometimes it's better to empathize.
Yeah, absolutely. So through your work, have you discovered, maybe like more emotions that are connected to, the type of, anger, depression, anxiety, those, like you said, you talked about being cared for. I don't know if that has anything to do with oxytocin, which is, but if you found, anyways, I mean, obviously there's no new quote unquote emotion in this world, but like if you found, like, I guess maybe things that really kind of are underlying to the way somebody can act and feel, and does that make any sense to you? This is a question that I just came up with, so.
We still have a lot to learn about emotions, and there are different cultures that have different words for emotions that don't exist in English.
Mhm.
There may be some
Right.
we
Okay.
haven't discovered yet.
Okay.
And there's also very little known about the biochemistry of emotion and about the biophysiology of emotion, why certain physiological
Mhm.
states can make a person feel angry. Maybe they're on, birth control hormones and they're
Right.
waking up feeling angry. And there's nothing in their life like to justify feeling that angry. And yet they're
Mhm.
feeling this enormous anger. Sometimes there are physiological imbalances. There can be seizures that can cause unusual electroactivity in part of the brain that could lead you to have a very swift change in an emotional state or a cognitive or behavioral state. And you're not convulsing and you're not unconscious. So maybe nobody, including yourself, realizes it's a seizure. You might just think it's this weird emotion swing.
Mhm.
So there's a lot we don't know right now about the mechanisms involved in emotion and the benefits they give, as well as I think we're maybe more familiar with the downside, right? When your emotions run amok and something bad happens, we all notice that. But what we know less about is all the many beneficial ways that emotions perform really vital, good, healthy functions.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's again like a really, really interesting field. So I look forward to
Yeah, I hope
continued
more of
research.
your viewers will choose to
Yeah,
study,
absolutely. No, for
help us
sure.
shape that future technology.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So in what could be taken in as like a controversial topic in society, per hands due to the nature of science fiction movies and their outcomes, why do we want computers to have emotional intelligence?
Now, let me discriminate emotional intelligence from having emotion.
Okay.
Emotional intelligence is things like if you're if you're upset about something, my paying attention to your emotions may be helping state what I see and helping you be aware of them and helping you get past them before, say, I try to give you a new math formula, right? Like, how much are you going to pay attention to this if you're still upset about something? So emotional intelligence is very much about perceiving what is happening out there and responding in an intelligent way to it. Now, I can teach a computer to do some of that without it ever having feelings. It doesn't have any emotions. In fact, computers don't even think or feel or learn or
Mm-hmm.
have awareness, even though we researchers use shorthand language and describe it as if it's learning and thinking and all that. We know it's not. We know it's just doing function approximation, and it just looks like it might be perceiving and understanding when there's no consciousness in there. It has no feelings. It has no awareness. So computers today do not have anything like human emotion. And furthermore, we don't have any idea how to give them an emotional experience like people do. We don't know how to give them any kind of experience like people have. So when I talk about giving them skills of emotional intelligence, it's more like knowing, if you're an unhappy customer and you're saying something negative and it's got this little smiley thing there, then it should stop smiling, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's emotional intelligence. If it's a robot and a customer is angry and upset and another one is not, probably, unless the customer is angry and upset at the robot, probably that's a time for the robot to assess, how it might be helpful, right? And stop cleaning the floor and look over that way and ask if there's anything it can do to help, or bring a human there to help, right? Because the robot's not going to be smart enough to handle a really challenging situation.
Of course. So you have stated in your book, affective
Affective
computing,
computing.
that perhaps by giving computers emotional ability, it will enhance their own sense of humanness.
Uh-huh.
How is this so in such a tech communicative world, in which we currently live, especially now with COVID?
One thing that tends to be the case for so it, one thing that I think you would definitely appreciate is that, because of the name different and abled, is that our society, our world benefits from people who are really different from each other.
Mhm.
And one of the dimensions that we have a lot of differences is with respect to emotion awareness, self-awareness, and other awareness. I work a lot with people who aren't aware of their emotions changing at all. You know, if this is really happy and this is really sad, you might imagine a line from sad to happy where the reality of what you feel and the reality of what you experience are exactly equal.
Mhm.
Instead, what we have is some people, as they go from sad to happy, they just feel the same thing until they get, you know, really sad or really happy, and then they notice it. So it's like a flat line with two
Right, of
emphases.
course.
Um, so there's some people who just have very little emotional range until it's really extreme. And then there are other people who have this great sensitivity across that emotional spectrum.
Mhm.
And what happens is that in the past, a lot of the people who are attracted to technology are of this type that tend to have very little emotional range. Technology is really nice to interact with. It also has no emotional range. It's very predictable. This is very attractive for a lot of people who, you know, are baffled by emotions. And that's good. And we don't want to mess that up for people. At the same time, if that's what's being designed for the people over here who are like this, it may not fit their experience, right? The flat affect supportive system just may not work for them.
Mhm.
So we need the diversity that we have in our world to also be in the creation of our technology. We need not one kind of computer or one kind of computer interface, but a variety of kinds that serve the needs of a variety of people. And most of what was built in the early days was really by a very homogeneous group of people who largely thought emotion was irrelevant and tended to be pretty flat across that spectrum.
Yeah.
By enabling computers to understand, like to recognize if a person is upset or calm, you know, relaxed or stressed, enjoying something and engaged, or really, you know, bored. By enabling the computer to see that, if you consent to sharing that, then the computer can adapt the experience so that it's more engaging for you. So it's giving you less of what annoys you. So it's helping you self-regulate. So it's helping you learn how to reduce your stress. And those things, they're not for everybody. They're not for every situation, but there are cases where they're really valuable.
Yeah, of course. Anyways, okay. I could go on and on. So, with all different types of questions, because your work again is like so interesting, and it's very complex. But this will be great for our viewers. So you're the co-founder of Effectiva. What is Effectiva, and how does a technological source make an inference about what a person's facial expression means?
Mm-hmm. Effectiva was a spin out from the MIT Media Lab that I co-founded with Rana El-Kalyoubi. And initially we had two products, one that was a wearable sensor that has turned into another story I think you're going to ask about, and one that was computer vision software to read changes in your facial muscle movements. And when you read those facial patterns in a particular context, in a particular situation, like let's say that I'm crafting this little video that I want to pay $5 million to show during the Super Bowl, and I want to make sure it makes people laugh, right? In fact, I want to make sure it makes them laugh in a happy way and not in a mean, you know, mad way. Then I might want to show it to a lot of people and not just ask them what they think of it, because we'll find people who will say what they think you want to hear, but actually, you know, get their permission, turn the camera on, and see if they're laughing at the moment that you're trying to make them laugh. And in that context, in that situation, with fully informed consent, the software can automatically watch what you're doing on your face. And then a smart person can interpret it properly, hopefully, in that situation. Now, this is different than knowing what you feel, right? It doesn't know your innermost feelings. It simply synchronizes your video with another one and looks at where are the moments that you're looking like, oh, that looks interesting. Like, oh, the dog walks out and my brows go up and I smile because I love the big dog, right? Somebody else is like not interested in the dog. And as you start to see what moments people attend to, you learn how to make a better video. You also learn how to give a more engaging lecture. I learned this because I would watch the software of what I made. And I'm like, oh, this is the part they're going to like. This is the part that I really thought was the best. And I put my joke in and nobody laughs. And I'm like, oh. And then I find they all smiled at this picture, this moment when the camera shifted to my son, right? And they all thought that was really charming. I'm like, oh, okay. So now I have to shorten this video, right? Guess which part I'm going to cut. I didn't really want to cut my joke because I kind of liked my joke, but the audience likes my son more than me. So I cut me and my son stays in. And the video gets shorter and the audience has a better experience.
Right. So cool.
And it's the objective data, right? There's something about, and it's not making emotions fully objective, right? Because we haven't captured the true emotion. We haven't captured the true emotional experience. We've just made it easier for somebody to quantitatively share something that usually is only qualitatively shared, right? Usually it's just, at the end of the experience, they fill out a survey, 1 to 10. Oh, well, that video was an 8, right? But now I can see which moments were a 10 and which moments were a 3. And I can edit it. And then the whole video becomes a 9 or a 10.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. It's crazy to think about too. But yeah, again, amazing. So your devices are helping to complete a communication circle between physicians and patients. So as these devices improve, how do you envision life might change for the chronically ill?
There is a revolution happening right now in wearables in particular. And when Affectiva started, it started with a wearable that then the CEO decided to stop making. Hardware is hard, manufacturing is a massive headache, and he wanted to do software. So the hardware was killed off. I started another company, which merged with Empatica SRL and became Empatica Inc. Empatica is the Italian word for empathetic. And that company, Empatica, makes wearables for medical use. And with the wearable data, I'm actually wearing 2 Empatica wearables.
Yeah,
right
I was looking. I was like, is that an iPhone? I mean, an Apple Watch or okay.
Yeah. People are always asking, is this an Apple Watch? Is this an Apple Watch?
Because they look very well.
Neither one is an Apple Watch.
Looks, yeah.
Yeah. I had a number of Apple designers say they were jealous. They thought our watch was more beautiful than the Apple Watch. The one on the right, this is Embrace. Embrace is an FDA cleared device for monitoring seizures, specifically the convulsive generalized tonic-clonic seizures, the kind where you lose consciousness and shake. And anybody, as I think anybody who has a brain can get epilepsy, can have multiple seizures for reasons we may not ever know. Sometimes it's due to brain trauma and injury, all kinds of causes, but many times you don't know. You're healthy one day and all of a sudden you have this unusual electrical activity. And there are lots of kinds of seizures, as I know you know. This Embrace detects the kind that cause you to lose consciousness and shake. And in that moment, you really should not be alone. You should have a device. You should either have somebody there with you who can alert for help if you need it, or a device that can alert somebody on your call list to come quickly, hopefully within minutes of the seizure starting. Because while most of the time people recover fine after a seizure, there is a significantly higher risk of apnea, stopping breathing, and which, if nobody's there, is more likely to turn into permanently stopping breathing after a seizure. There's also a higher risk of accidents, hitting your head and bleeding. And if there's not somebody there quickly to help you with first aid at that moment, you won't have as good outcomes then either. So if you have or know somebody who has convulsive seizures, it is so important that they have some way of making sure they're not alone at those times. And so Embrace is one way to do that. It is FDA cleared to detect the seizure, call whoever you designate on your caregiver list. You can give it permission to give your GPS, your location, and then it will bring somebody. Now, it's not perfect.
Of course not.
It's not going to it's not going to recognize all kinds of seizures. It's possible it might miss even the convulsive ones sometimes. It also sometimes has false alarms. You can move and sweat in such a way that it accidentally goes off. But hopefully you're conscious then, and you can tap it to cancel it, or you can cancel it on the app before it calls somebody. And hopefully then, you're not calling anybody, but most people don't mind being called if it might be the real thing, especially they want to be there to help you. And it's been shown that if people are not alone when they have these convulsive seizures, they have much better outcomes. They're much more likely to live, to have no injuries or fewer injuries. And that is exciting. Something like more than 65% reduction in deaths, specifically sudden unexpected death in epilepsy, SUDEP.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Actually, so I'm sure this name will ring a bell to you. But do you know Oren Davinsky?
Yes, we work with Oren Davinsky. Oren is a wonderful advisor and friend and has been my number one go-to guy for advice many times. Yeah.
He's amazing. He's my doctor. I know his entire family. I'm a part of Faces, but it's funny because up until you mentioned this watch, I was like thinking, oh, I remember reading X, Y, and Z about this watch that you have did. Anyways, he's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
He's a fabulous scientist too.
Oh my goodness. With CBD,
such an amazing researcher. Yeah. When it
really, really amazing. But I'm just thinking, just from an epilepsy standpoint, like I do have one friend who is that this watch would be absolutely amazing. I think she just had brain surgery. It's a whole other thing. But anyways, I think it's a great device. Also, I have somebody, anyways, moving on, but
by the way, it also is a smartwatch. It will give you, there's a diary app that goes with it. And there's an alert app for, alerting for help. There's also a diary app where you can look at your sleep, your steps. You can keep track of medications and get medication reminders.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's like it's like an iPhone. And call it an iPhone, an Apple Watch.
It's a smartwatch. And it will do, it will give you, even before the Apple Watch could give you any sleep. The Apple Watch wouldn't even make it through the night. The battery wouldn't last that long. This is designed for people who need the technology to make it through the night, right? And it also prioritizes your seizure alerts. A lot of the consumer smartwatches, they don't prioritize your medical app. In the middle of the night, it might decide to update your game app or your Uber app. And it thinks, 2 minutes to update that app. Well, 2 minutes if you're having a generalized tonic-clonic seizure and you stop breathing is a long time. So you don't want other things to take priority over your seizure alerts. You want that to be number one. Make sure that people on your call list know to get there ASAP, because in the minutes after, you can stop breathing and somebody being there and stimulating you can restart your breathing.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, it's really interesting. I could talk about epilepsy all day long, but I have a friend who actually watched me have a seizure because we went off to college together, because that was when I first started having seizures. I've only had 3 my entire life, so it's not like
good. And hopefully it's
hopefully not again. And I've been seizure free for so long, so it's all good. But anyways, she wouldn't listen to me because she had a few seizures in college, and I always told her, you have to go see Oren Davinsky. And she kind of put it off. Not everybody is as well versed, or is like want to get the help. And seeing doctors is not always what everyone wants to do, or they try to submiss that they have a problem and so forth. But to make a long story short, she finally is seeing Oren, and I call him Oren because I know him so well. But she's finally seen Oren, and she actually is the one that just got brain surgery. But she would have so benefited from this watch. So she has convulsive seizures and all of that. Mine have been partial. So, I lose consciousness, but my right side shakes because of my brain injury, since it's contralateral. And it's a whole other thing. So, but anyways, to make a long story short, she literally had a seizure this summer, like she was like hanging by like her pool or something, and her
Mm.
home in Long Island or something, dangling, and in the water, had a seizure and almost drowned.
Oh gosh.
So, it's like,
Yeah.
and fortunately she
Yeah.
survived. She's okay. She's taking things seriously now, but
Good.
it's
Good.
just, or she won't take her medication. She had a seizure with a friend of mine, like over New Year's Eve. And like, anyways, I'm just like pinpointing that this would be like an amazing device. I mean, is an amazing
Yeah.
device, especially to those who will do it or will use it. So anyways, uh, you're okay. So can you talk about how your oh, well, we already just actually
Oh,
spoke
can
about
I
that,
say
but
one more thing too, just to be complete?
yeah,
While it's been shown that when people are not alone, they have significantly reduced rate of SUDEP. I just want to say nothing is perfect. Having somebody there is not perfect.
of
Having a
course
device is
not.
not perfect. None of these things can guarantee to protect you. There are some rare cases where somebody was there and the first aid still wasn't enough. But there are fortunately lots more cases where when somebody comes there and finds the person not breathing, they can stimulate them, put them in a new position, clear the airway, give first aid, and the individual suffering from the seizure turns out fine. So
Yeah, I
the
mean,
lesson
usually,
is don't be alone if you
yeah.
are going to have a
No,
seizure.
and usually if somebody sees that someone's having a seizure, I mean, aside from one
Yeah.
time when my mom was there, I mean,
Yeah. And
all the
also,
other times they had no idea. They called, 911 and an ambulance came, and, so in a lot of ways, like, you're technically not alone, even unless you're
mhm.
physically alone in a house or something, but you're in public. But no, it's important, like, to know that you're not alone and to,
Yeah.
um,
It's also an example of where the AI is not good enough without people. And this, in fact, is something we've thought a lot about in our lab. In the beginning, we used to think, oh, we just need to build smarter AI, and it does the job better than a person. And what we've learned over time is that what the AI is good at and what the people are good at tend to be very different. And the AI can't restart your breathing. It can't take care of clearing your airway. In the future, even a companion robot might not be able to do all of these things perfectly. However, the AI doing what it's good at, running continuously, detecting something when it happens, and the person doing what they're much better than an AI at, of being there for you and solving a much more complicated problem, is a powerful combination. So as we develop technology for the future, we're thinking less and less about trying to build this AI that's so
right,
smart that it might keep humans around as household pets, which doesn't sound like a kind of future I want to build anyhow.
right.
And instead, the AIs that really make human lives better, like that fill in for things that we're not good at, and enable us to be better at doing the things that we really are better at.
Yeah, for sure. So there seems to be a lot of different parts of effective computing. There's many different applications, and a lot of uses for it. What is your favorite, and what do you find most interesting, and enjoyable to work on? It's a big question.
Yeah, lately the challenge that I've become most interested in is how could we improve people's mental health? In particular, could we take people who are healthy, mentally healthy, but at high risk of developing an anxiety disorder or depression, and could we intervene early and actually prevent most of the depression from happening? So instead of a 20 to 50% depression rate among certain groups of people, and there are a lot of groups that the rates are that high, take people who are getting bad medical diagnosis. You're getting a diagnosis of diabetes or epilepsy or cancer or any of these horrible conditions to deal with. And a lot of people, when they get that, they get depressed. Now, but some people don't. What's the difference? What are the contributing factors that enable some people to be resilient and bounce back from a really awful diagnosis, and other people, become very fragile and don't do so well? We've been learning what a lot of those factors are. And then the idea is, could we do like a digital vaccine, a kind of an affective, give you more control over building the health and the resilience and the strength of your affective, if you will, your affective immune system, so that when these bad things come and beat you up and push you down, you go down a little bit, but you bounce back instead of, really succumbing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, this is just the last question. I mean, you and I could talk so much more. But if our community, if there's one thing that our community could take away from effective computing, emotional intelligence, what would be one thing that you'd hope that they would take away?
I think I would encourage people to connect emotionally with each other, without technology. I mean, you can use the technology to help you connect, but take emotions seriously. I think I was somebody who kind of just wanted to avoid them for much of my life. And now I realize that they are not only powerful, but they're really constructive. They can actually be used to deepen connections, to propel learning, to propel innovation. If you learn how emotion helps different parts of your brain work, you can actually use it as a kind of a superpower. It's not an undesirable thing. It's actually a really desirable thing, but you want to understand it and how to use it, just like any other muscles or physical aspects of your body. If you can understand them and work with them, then you are empowered to do much more. And if you, during this time, like so many people are struggling during this pandemic, if you're one of those people who's especially struggling, I really encourage you to reach out to somebody else, because you're not alone.
Of course,
So many people
you're not
are
alone.
struggling right now. And we've seen that when people just take breaks with another person, if they just reach out to an old friend, hey, I just thought of you. I know we haven't talked in forever, but just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you, right? Just little points of connection like that can do wonders for improving one's own emotions, or writing somebody a letter telling them something that you're thankful for, something that you're grateful for. Little things like that, you can not only make the other person super happy, but it actually bounces back on you and can help your emotions move into a better space as well.